Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel with my coffee, which is just an iced coffee, and I did add a touch of oat milk, so there is that. But we don't have any rain, but we have books. So, we'll take the best 2 out of 3 whenever we can get it. And we're going to dive straight into To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. Now, this is book number 2 of the Curse Bearer series, and these are novellas in the fact that Veronica Roth can usually she can usually write fairly girthy books. So this one, or at least these two in this particular series, are usually pretty short. This one's 240, but it is still considered a novella. I want to say my audiobook was somewhere around 5 or 6 hours. I don't think it was too incredibly long. And I really think that was the even better way to, I guess, absorb it, because the person did such a fantastic job with the names of the various kind of creatures throughout this book and the names. So if you don't know anything about this particular series, I do highly suggest you start with the first one, which is When Among Crows. That will introduce you to our main character, Dimitri, something like that, which I'm, again, not very good at Slavic or Polish pronunciations, and his friend Allah. So in the first book, they have some antics, and in this second book, they are definitely continuing with those antics. But first and foremost, I do want to let you know, if you listen to this particular episode, you will have potentially some spoilers for what happened in the first one. If you are fine with that, then keep going, and you can go back and pick up that other one whenever you want, as long as you don't mind kind of knowing a little bit more about the ending of the first one. I did try to completely avoid the ending when I did my review for it. I usually try to keep it very surface level. However, it's going to be hard for me to talk about this book without spoiling some of book number 1. I am going to try to not spoil this one. But if along comes number 3 in this particular series, which I have a feeling we may get, then you'll probably need to listen or read the first 2 if you don't want them spoiled. But let's dive into the summary. New York Times bestselling author Veronica Roth pulls from Slavic folklore to explore family, duty, and what it means to be a monster in the sequel to USA Today's best-selling novella When Among Crows. A funeral, a heist, a desperate mission. When Dimitri, and I think it's Dimitri, I'm not certain if I'm rolling those, I guess, syllables correctly, is called back to the old country for the empty night, a funeral rite intended to keep evil at bay. It's the perfect opportunity for him to get his hands on his family's most guarded relic, a book of curses that could satisfy the debt he owes legendary witch Baba Yaga. But first he'll have to survive a night with his dangerous monster-hunting kin. As the sun sets, the line between enemy and ally becomes razor thin, and Dimitri's new loyalties are pushed to their breaking point. Family gatherings can be brutal, but Dimitri might just be fatal. So it is considered fantasy, urban fantasy, queer, adult, and I did have the audiobook. I think I stated that already, but the hardcover is about 240 pages. Again, it is considered a novella by I think most standards. And my audiobook itself was also pretty short as well. Now, when I'm looking at this, I don't see that it's listed as a novella, but the first one is. The first one says best-selling novella of When Among Crows. And I don't know, I think when an audiobook for me is between 5 and 6 hours, I tend to think of it as a novella because it's able to quickly get to the point and then wrap things up and send it on its way. It also first published September 16th of 2025. I am still trying to get just some of my recordings done because I was making my calendar for September and October. So this is September, and that's a little of September, and all of this down here is October. And I don't know if you can tell by the camera, but every single one of those blocks is full. I may have put a lot on my plate. So once I catch up with this week, I have already recorded or at least read 3 of the books due out next week. So actually, based on what I did reading this morning and today, I think I've caught up pretty well. I think I just have 2 to get through. So I think I'm doing okay. But as for this particular book, we have some really cool Slavic Polish folklore, and my exposure to that has been, I guess, more minimal than I want it to be because I think it is so incredibly cool. Now, any sort of mythology and folklore in general is usually very intriguing to me. I also love when we get fairy tale-esque like aspects woven in, but for this particular story, I don't think we have any fairy tale-esque-ness, but we do have that folklore, which kind of weaves in this legendary witch Baba Yaga. And we also have, I think they're called Striga, we have Rusalka, we have, what are they called? Viwa and Kikimura and all of those sorts of things. I jotted down a few of them that I was trying to remember because they were such cool names, and then I looked up on Wikipedia what they kind of were representing. Now I can tell a little bit in hers what she is kind of hoping they represent, but like a striga is kind of seems to be like a vampire-esque, a striga or strigon. I think a striga is female and a strigon is probably potentially the male version of it, at least in this particular story. A rusalka is more or less like a water nymph or mermaid, of course, Baba Yaga. She is supposed to represent the nature's untamable and unpredictable aspects, which are a viwa is considered a fairy or a nymph, and we do meet one of those in an airport nonetheless, and she's pretty cool. I really liked her. And then the Kikimura is more of a house spirit. So those were just a few that I jotted down, and we are still learning about, now again, if you have not read the first one, then I do apologize, but this may be a spoiler. Dimitri came to Chicago on a mission from his family to kill Baba Yaga. Let's just say that didn't happen. But now he more or less he lost his sword to Baba Yaga. And it's a bone sword, and he really wants it back. It's a part of his body. Now, is him not having his sword, not having his spine, can he just lay there and just be, oh, blah, blah, goo? No. He is still intact physically, but that sword is a missing part of his soul. And so that's what he was raised to be by his family, and that's what they are, is this sort of monster hunter, demon hunter group. Well, in the first book, and again, this might be a spoiler for you, so I'm very sorry, he becomes one of the monsters. If you want to know what kind of monster, you can go ahead and read, but I'm just letting you know he becomes one of them. And he didn't realize that could happen because he thought if he was this monster hunter, he would be immune to it. He was not. So now he has a little bit of both of those abilities. And when he was a monster hunter, one of the things he could do was almost use pain magic. He could cut himself or cut his arm or something like that, and then give tenfold pain to someone else. And it was kind of like torturing them, and he would then, of course, not suffer very much. Yes, he's still kind of suffering, but pain was supposed to make you stronger and all of this sort of thing. I'm sorry, but I have never believed in what doesn't kill you make you stronger sort of thing. I believe in what doesn't kill you gives you trauma sort of thing. That's just my mindset with regards to it. I did date someone who was very much a what doesn't kill you make you stronger, and that did not last very long because I just don't like that mindset. It just does not work for me. If it works for you, hey, everybody has their own ways of going through life, but it does not work well for me. But So now Dimitri wants to get his sword back from Baba Yaga, and he's supposed to do something for Baba Yaga. And again, I'm going to try to keep that very vague. To complete her quest to retrieve his sword. However, he is trying to think of anything else he could potentially do to maybe use as a bartering tool. So he settles upon this idea of the fact that there is a book that is more like the handbook of his monster hunting family. And he already knows he's going to go visit his family, not because he really wants to, but because that book is there, and because his uncle died. And it was an uncle he was close to. An uncle, I think it was his father's brother. So he does plan on going home. The only issue is that he, again, is now a monster in himself. He is no longer this monster hunter. He is now kind of one of their prey, one of their hunted. And they don't know it yet. He, of course, knows it. So there's a lot on the line. He doesn't decide. His roommate, Ala, decides that she's going to go with him to kind of help him. And she's a really cool character as well, because we do see her in the first book, and we see that they bonded well. Now, at the very beginning of this book, I feel like they're talking about these two people as though they're really more just like acquaintances, but they share this tiny apartment in Chicago together. So I guess but they're not interested in each other. Dimitri has a love interest named Nico, who also is a monster in himself. But it's really cute. However, Dimitri and Nico are kind of on opposing sides at this point, because Nico has a vendetta out against Dimitri's mom. And so, and her name, I think she's called the Razor. That's not her name. That's just what they call her. Because she's a very, kind of badass woman. But she's also incredibly mean and hateful. So we're not rooting for her. So he goes home, and he is nervous. Of course he is. He's very nervous. And he had already kind of sent his sister packing, Elsa, because he didn't want her to get caught up in all the things going on in Chicago. He also grew up incredibly close to Elsa, so if anybody's going to know that he's changed, personality-wise or anything like that, then she's probably going to know. So he's trying his best, but he does go home. So now this is where the heist comes into play, and where Ala's got a couple of things that she's going to try to do. Dimitri's going to try to almost distract while maybe Ala tries to grab the book. Let's just say everything does not go to plan, because of course not everything can go perfectly to plan. There wouldn't be a book if everything goes perfectly. There's a lot of intense moments in this book, and I saw some critiques that didn't like this one as much as the first one. However, I disagree with those. I thought this one was more intense, and I really liked it. Okay, I hated to see the torture parts. That was terrible. Or read about those torturous parts, because I don't think anyone should suffer like that. However, especially at the hands of potentially people that they're close to. But nonetheless, I thought this was a great book for character growth. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning that I think hope/wish that there will be a third, because I really feel as though at the end of this book, we see that there is a need, or I see a need, for Dimitri to kind of face off against his sister Elsa. And I would like them to be on the same side. I would like her to not hunt him now, but I have a feeling that she may come to Chicago hunting him, and they may have to come to head to head. I don't know. This is my speculation. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. But it feels like a potentially logical course for where the story could go. So I need a third one. to help round out their stories. But him and Allah do grow as a couple, and I'm not going to mention Nico too much because I don't want to give any spoilers away regarding any of that. Let's just say they are not always on the same side of the fight, and makes sense because, of course, Dimitri doesn't want his mom to die, even though she is more of a monster than the monsters he's been hunting. She is not a good person. So just putting that out there. But I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I don't think I've spoiled too much out of this potential book. Again, it's not very long, and so I'm kind of trying to dance around what I feel like might be the juicier bits. But just be aware, there is some moments where he is subject to some torture at the hands of people he's close to, and it is not really comfortable. It is not a comfortable scene to read through. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining me on this journey. I will see you on the next page. Have a great one.